This video covers the creation of a custom widget for the Videre CMS. This video assumes that you have already reviewed the Videre CMS Getting Started video found on the Videre CMS website. So, to make sure we have our things set up correctly, we should have a folder to where we have Videre and Webin. We have our log files, then web. And we also can browse the local Videre website under localhost Videre. If you need more information, once again, please review the Videre CMS Getting Started video. Okay, in order to get started developing our widget, we're going to use Visual Studio 2013 Community Edition. We're going to go to Tools, Extensions and Updates. We're going to click on Online. And we are going to search for the Videre template pack. Go ahead and download that. Say Install. We need to restart. To create our widget, we're going to click on New Project. We're going to locate the Videre widget template. We're going to put a name prefixed with our company, the type of widgets we're creating, widgets, and we're going to put it in the cdev Videre widgets folder. We're going to click OK. We now have a Videre widget wizard pop up, and we need to specify the location of our Videre directory, the web directory. So cdev Videre web, it's going to put in the relative path for us, and we're going to click OK. We now have our widget created, and what I want to do now is open up the Videre portal that we have locally and log in. And I want to show you that when we go to page template, we already have a test page set up. You'll notice here that we don't have our new widget showing up here. But if I simply compile the project, what's going to happen is it's going to package up, do all the things necessary for Videre to understand it, and package up and deploy our widget into our portal. So now, if we hit refresh on our portal, right now it's installing the package, so it's taking a little bit of time. Open up our test page. We're going to go to Layout, and you see we now have this sample section, and we can drag our new widget onto our page, and we're going to go ahead and hit Save. Now we're going to go to the test page, and you'll see we have our new widget sitting here. Before moving on, I would like you to have a better understanding of all the moving pieces involved in what we just accomplished. First thing to understand is that we have our solution here that actually, when you do a compile, this has been this way for some time in Visual Studio, runs an MS build script. That MS build script we've extended into this build targets script that has information like the name of our widget, also has our deployer. This is what that Videre wizard was all about, giving our location of that. You can see after the build, we update the manifest we call create package, which is going to zip up the contents of our distributables, and then eventually deploy it to the location that's specified. But we're actually deploying it to the updates folder. So if we look at our file system here, if we go to web, what happens when we do our compile is it simply copies a file into this folder here. Once it installs it, once the actual application installs it, the web application that is, it will then copy it and place it into the packages folder, as you can see here. So if we open this up and we go to admin package, we will see a list of the packages that have already been installed into our portal. Oops. Here's planning, my company planning widgets. You can see when it was installed, so on and so forth. The last bit of information that I want to cover is how our widget gets registered. So we have these events that happen for each widget. We have a registration that implements iWidget registration. And in here, we actually are registering any AJAX endpoints that we have. This bit of logic, we're registering the widget itself. Here's the path to our widget, the name of it, the title, and the category. This category is what is represented in our designer in the layout right here. So every single time our application starts up, we get a register event, similar to the global ASA in a normal application. And then since Videre also supports multiple portals, we also have an event that happens once per portal where we get passed in the portal ID. Now that you have a basic understanding of the moving pieces involved with compiling and packaging up your widget, let's go ahead and extend it. To do this, I want to start out by reviewing what our widget currently does. It's a simple to-do list that if we want to make a new entry, we click on this, we get a dialog. Some text can be added there, and we can have a complete date. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save, and we have a new record on our screen. So this uses a basic model and a client-side presenter and some AJAX calls. So let's go ahead and extend this by adding a new property. So if we open up our models, you'll see we have a task. We're going to go ahead and create something called category. We have now enhanced our model to have category on it. Our UI, we actually are going to want to display that. So our UI is actually using a JS render template to render the initial table. So we have our header information here. So we're going to go ahead and add a new column called category. And you'll see that we use model.getText. Videre supports localization, but instead of having to open up a resource file or something like that and define our key and our text for it, Videre allows you to specify the key here and put in a default value. And this will, behind the scenes, the first time it's run, add the entry for the default value, which is usually English, but it's whatever your portal's set up for. And then you can add additional localizations to this later on. But it's just a convenient thing for a developer to be able to do here. This is our JS render template, and we're going to go ahead and bind our category attribute to that. And then the next piece that we want to do is in our dialog that we have displayed, we're going to actually give a drop-down value for that. And one of the things Videre has is a Fluent API for Bootstrap. In order to understand what we're doing here, though, I think it's a good idea to actually pull up the Bootstrap site and see how their HTML is structured so that it makes a little more sense to us. So we're going to open up how they want you to structure a form. So we want to basically add one more of these things, and you can see we have a form group, we have a label control, and then we also have an email displaying. For an inline form, it's slightly different. Actually, horizontal form is what I'm referring to here. So for a horizontal form, we have a form group, we have a label, but you see the label actually specifies the size for the label, how much width it's going to have, and then that's encapsulated by another div class that has the size for the rest of the control with an input type in it. So for our UI, you see we have a form group similar to that. The form group contains a label. The label has a grid size specified, call MD3 in this case. And then after that we have a text box that's width of this div tag that the text box is within is a column D9. So let's go ahead and add a category to this. And this time we're going to make it a drop-down list. The data column that we're going to bind to is going to be called category. And we are going to we're going to add options to it here in a second, but I just want to finish this off. Call MD9. This IntelliSense is getting in my way. Okay, we can make it required if we want. We're going to add options to it. And Visual Studio is being a pain right now. Add a new category for work, and we're going to do the same thing for home. I'm going to make this a little nicer by putting these on a new line here. So it's a little more easy to read. I forgot my equal sign. Close off that. Okay, so we've now added a new category to our UI. The last piece that we have is, since we're not really hooking into a database here, you can see that we're just using a static list, making an in-memory database for that. My persistence logic here, to where I pass in a task up the chain, we actually need to apply that. Existing task.category equals task.category for our save logic. Okay, so now we're going to hit compile. That, of course, is going to redeploy our build solution. Now we're going to hit refresh here, and if all goes well, we should have a new column here show up that says category. We should be able to edit one of these guys. We have our list, work or home. Go ahead and hit save. And we have persisted our logic correctly. The last thing I want to kind of cover is an AJAX call here. And we're just going to kind of look at what's going on. So Videre wants to encapsulate the client-side logic with what is called a client-side presenter. This is a JavaScript class that gets instantiated on the server side. Or defined on the server side, where we're registering it. We're saying we're going to register our presenter up here. We're going to pass it our list of tasks from the server side on down. And that will automatically get applied to the setter of our data object and allow us to interact with it there. We have some basic onload event handlers that are occurring. When we do our bind, we are actually, this is our JS render logic that we have there. You can find out more information about JS Render by doing a Google on that. And the data attribute that we have for this, I just want to point this out. When we inspect this element, you'll see this HTML here has a data column name. Data column equals to name. So if we actually look at the logic, we're not mapping name equals name or so on and so forth. We are simply calling a helper method persist data, persist it to this particular value, and use the dialog as its container. So when we call save, we actually are calling this.ajax, and this is where we're matching up our controller that was registered. If you remember at the beginning here, we have our registration to where we're saying that the my company widgets, and then whatever the controller is going to be invoking our controller up here. So I'm going to go ahead and put a breakpoint here I'm going to go to debug. I'm going to say attached process. Select my W3 WP. Ugh. It's annoying. It wasn't loaded under administrator, so I got to redo this here. Debug, attach to process, going to attach to the W3 service. And now, if I hit save here, we are actively debugging our component. So you can just hit F10 through that if you want to, and away we go. That should be it. That covers the basics of module development using the Visual Studio Videre CMS template.